It's time for ACC Central, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Monty Taylor, Micah Butel, and Nick Dioli.
Welcome back to another episode of ACC Central, partnered with the Just Means Less crew. I'm joined by Nick Dioli, the one, the only Nick Dioli, and UVA hater Micah Butel.
I wonder who was going to do that first.
Well, you knew it was going to be me because I got the intro. Nick, we are 5 days away. How excited are you?
Dude, I'm getting the itch. I've had the itch. I can't wait. I love this Virginia team. And I'm glad that we're talking about them today because they're one of my teams, man. I'm really digging this team. So I'm excited. I can't wait to start this.
Well, you know who doesn't love this UVA team? Micah Butel. Micah, how are you doing?
This hype makes me sick.
He picked, oh my God, Monty, did you see the other day, someone tweeted out, you're sitting at a table, and it was like if you have to pick a table, the teams who get to Omaha, right? So Micah
it was win the national title. Get it right.
Win the national title, correct. So I asked him Virginia's table, and he said last.
It was a bad table. It was like Virginia, Mississippi State,
Oklahoma. I think was the other one.
Like I'm not on Oklahoma, excuse me.
You are on.
Not
Oklahoma
really
State.
I'm on Oklahoma State. I'm not on Oklahoma. And like Mississippi State, like they're good, but they're not like I don't have them going to Omaha. So you're putting all the weight in Virginia. I'm good, Nick. I'm good, man. I'm out.
You're not a true fan then.
I will say I think the last time Virginia was chosen to win the ACC was 2015.
That's true.
Which they did not win the ACC in 2015. They barely made the
They
made the NCAA tournament.
A little bit better though.
As a 3 seed, yes. But anyway, let's just jump right into it. We got to talk about what they lost here, and the big names, obviously Griff O'Farrell, the legendary Griff O'Farrell, and some pitchers. But we'll start with Nick because Micah's going to be a little bit more emotional like me as UVA fans. But Nick, who are they going to miss the most here?
Oh my goodness. I mean,
it should be noted, by the way, it should be.
I could pick a name out of a hat and like it's going to be a big time loss, you know, like
it should be noted that Joe Savino will be missed on the mound, but not in the clubhouse as he is a graduate assistant coach. So,
very nice.
So, cool. So he may not be missed. So physically.
What you're telling me is Mo Ravino will be making an appearance for Virginia at some point this year.
There you go. But,
man, I mean, those top three are just, I can't believe that they're going to be gone. But I'll go Griff O'Farrell. I mean, that's the easy choice, I guess. One of the better shortstops in the ACC last year. Really good defensively, played a lot for the Virginia. I'll just go him. But I mean, like, none of these names, especially like the top 3 or 4, are a wrong answer.
Yeah, to me, Griff O'Farrell might be the best shortstop in UVA history. He holds a lot of records, did a lot with it. But Micah, who are you going to miss the most? And
from a selfish standpoint, I'm going to miss Anthony working at the grocery store. If you know, you know.
That's right.
Anthony Stefan's walk-up song was grade A stuff. But honestly, it's a pair of bullpen arms, Angelo Tonis and Chase Hungate. I mean, Chase Hungate stung because we were hoping to have him back in 25. But obviously, we kind of knew Angelo Tonis was going to be done after that last year. But 2 high-leverage inning guys, it's hard to replace.
Yeah, they were probably our 2 most consistent relievers last year, aside from Matt Augustine, who did I say we? Our most.
You did say we.
I did.
Monty's all in on the Hoos.
Virginia's most experienced arms, or most consistent arms, until Matt Augustine towards the end of the year as a freshman. But the Chase Hungate one hurt a little bit. Cullen McKay, not too big a surprise after he kind of fell off a cliff in the middle of the season after struggling a bit. I hope he gets back to form at Coastal and does really, really well because I like him. He's got really good stuff. It was just command wasn't there. But it does go to show you that how good UVA's offense is, that we're kind of like, I'm going to miss Griff O'Farrell because he was a legend, or like the three guys because they were legends. But the big thing is those pitchers. But, here's the key newcomers. A big one headlining it, Chris Arroyo, who is an absolute stud. A lot of pitchers. You'll also note that William Kirk, a highly recruited freshman, is not listed here. I believe he is out for the year and will not be able to contribute in his first season. But they brought in a really good recruiting class and a lot of pitchers, plus they brought guys back. So you'll notice that departures, Nick, do not include the likes of Jay Wolfolk and Harrison Didewick, both of whom were expected not to be with Virginia this season. And Jacob Ferentz, who a lot of people thought might get drafted.
That's the biggest keep, in my opinion, Monty. I know we're going to get to the lineup here in a minute, but I mean, I did not think there was any shot we were going to have him back. I just did it again. Virginia was going to have him back, but I mean, yeah, that was a huge keep for Virginia.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy is they've lost in consecutive years. They lose Geloff, Teal, O'Donnell one year, and their offense is better. Now they're losing Griff, EA, Sauke, Whalen, Stefan, and people believe their offense is going to be even better than that. And it's just
crazy, man.
Imagine we were sitting in Omaha last year, Monty, and we are bummed as Virginia fans that the season had come to an end, obviously going 0-2 again in Omaha.
And they were the first.
Said, hey, by the way, the offense is actually going to be a lot better when we're talking the preview show next year. Not that we don't believe in Brian O'Connor, but you're just sitting there like, again, you don't think Ferentz is coming back. You're not thinking Didewick's coming back. You're also throwing in, again, the loss of EA, and you said all the guys down the list. It's like, yeah, this offense is going to be tough to replace. And it's like, now we're going into 25, like, yeah, we think they might actually be better than last year.
They also had 8 high-level recruits that I thought were. I mean, I thought we could potentially lose all of them. We got 5 of them to campus, which
Grounds?
Is pretty big. Huh?
Grounds?
Yep, Grounds. Thank you. So that's a big get. Yeah, it's so weird because I always want to say first year instead of freshman, but people need that freshman logic.
For the podcast people, we have to say freshman.
But this is not going to be your Virginia team of O'Connor's early tenure at Virginia. This is, the one that was predicated on small ball and pitching. This is going to be a big, powerful, lighted up offense that could be the best in the country and is a reason why several outlets had them receiving number 1 votes. And Micah would not buy into the hype, but I have a feeling after this show he might for a couple of minutes before.
Monty, I actually genuinely believe that, like, if you told me based off what Virginia has, that they're a top 3 team, like they're probably the best team in the ACC, especially offensively. But again, I'm just not letting myself. I'm not buying in, Monty. I refuse.
Yep. Let's talk about where they might have some issues, and that might be on the pitching staff. But I think they're going to be better than last year with the pitching staff. And obviously, the pitching staff came together towards the end of the year, which was what allowed them to go to Omaha. But I'm hearing great things about Evan Blanco. His velocity's gone up. Micah, you're all in on Evan Blanco for some reason. You want to talk about that?
I mean, I just think he's one of the best arms in the country. I mean, his stuff is just unbelievable. Monty, I didn't even know that you said you've been hearing great things. I mean, I just hadn't heard bad things, but you're obviously a lot more in tuned. I also just love that he provides that, that lefty arm. He was legit down the stretch last year, right? Like he was easily the guy down the stretch. But I'm just so excited for what he brings, another year of progression, And again, too, I mean, Jay, I think actually I'm more excited about Jay because I'm the first to admit, if you're a Virginia fan, you have a love-hate relationship with Jay Wolfolk. There's been a lot of times he stresses you out, but I really liked what he did down the stretch, and I think that based off what I heard now, obviously quitting football and really focusing on just baseball, I think this could be a special year for him as that Saturday guy, and maybe even moving into the Friday if we have any issues with Evan or if you just want to do some matchup stuff.
Yeah, and I think the confidence, with him, it's a lot of mental, right? Because he's got the stuff, and it's just a matter of harnessing that command. But I really liked what I saw from him in the postseason. He was obviously critical to their success against Mississippi State and Kansas State. And even in the game against the elimination game against Florida State, he pitched pretty well, but ultimately a bit of a strain, I think, caused him to be forced out of that game a little early. But yeah, I thought you were going to bring up Evan Blanco's mustache for me. That's what I was fishing for.
Oh, see, I honestly, not that I forgot, but now you say that, like, you know, the mustache is chef's kiss.
Yeah, I will say with Evan Blanco, it's been a pleasure to watch him develop. He was he's been a key guy on the staff since he arrived on grounds as a freshman. I mean, he was the lefty arm out of the bullpen a lot of times, and was very, very important as a freshman. And then to watch him develop into a starter last year. But Nick, talk to me a little bit about this these arms. I mean, you can continue talking about Evan Blanco or Jay Wolfhook, because I imagine you know a little bit more about them than the other three guys, but I'll let you give your piece here on the rotation.
I mean, it's a scary thing to hear Evan Blanco's velocity got even better. I mean, this guy, 75% of the time when you're talking about strikeouts to walks, he's striking guys out. I mean, he's got a 99 to 27 strikeout to walk ratio. He definitely has a shot at being pitcher of the year. I mean, without a doubt. I'm very excited to see Evan go out. Jay, I mean, Micah put it best. Like, when I really started watching Virginia in the ACC tournament and regionals and super regionals, when you had to, I mean, he came up so clutch for them. But I mean, he's got to keep it going, because Evan's strikeout to walk ratio is great. Jay's was not so much. I think that's something that he's got to focus on, and I think he will. I mean, he's going to be a senior this year, probably your Saturday guys, so we'll see. But these two I'm very, very excited about.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident when we get to the projections who the Friday, Saturday, Sunday guys are going to be, and then it's kind of a toss-up for the midweek. But I do like Bryson Moore could have been a really important piece for the Who's last year if he hadn't gotten hurt a little bit early on in the season and missed some time. Joe Colucci is a JUCO guy that I didn't know much about, but when I saw him in the fall, I was really impressed with. And then Chris Arroyo again. He was a pitcher only at Florida. Went to JUCO, got the opportunity to do both ways, and as a star, so he's going to get an opportunity to play two ways at Virginia and be of huge impact. But let's take a look at the rest of this staff, and you've got a lot of options here on the relief side. Micah, who is your X factor out of the bullpen?
Ryan Ozinski. I think if he can take another step forward, that's a huge arm to have. I'm already a full believer in Kevin Jacksell. Obviously, he had his struggles, but I think that ship's going to get. I mean, I guess it can get worse than how it went last year. But I think a lot of his struggles too, if I'm remembering correctly, Monty, was him actually being like a starter when they were trying that with him. That's where he really struggled. Obviously, you have reason to be excited about Jack O'Connor too, but. I think what's nice about this relief staff is that it's not, I don't know if there's a single name I'm like, yeah, that's the guy. That's maybe a little, like, I guess, concerning if you want to look at it that way. But I think you don't really have a drop off either with really any arm you kind of go to. You kind of have confidence that they can kind of get the job. And I'm sure they'll work through, how this ends up setting up. And maybe, Monty, you have a better answer of who's going to set up where. But I think there's reasons to believe that this bullpen has a lot of good arm pieces that they can plug and play.
Yeah, the tricky part is they've got a lot of guys, and they're going to probably spend – it's going to be hard not to overreact, because I think they're going to spend the first month trying to figure out those roles. But, to mention Kevin Jacksell, I want to just throw it out there. He did have a really good summer up in the Northwoods League for the Waterloo Bucks, 4-0, 2.97 ERA in 33 innings. He did make 5 starts, so he was still kind of a starter, but struck out 40. Still had a little bit of a higher walk rate, but, looked really much better than he had last season. Osinski pitched 7 innings, didn't give up a run, so that's fun if you were looking for that. But Charlie O'Shell is a guy I think I'm looking forward to highlighting. Obviously, the younger brother of Fran O'Shell. He only pitched in 6 games last year, only 3 total innings. I think he's going to have an opportunity to do a lot more this year. He impressed me when he got in the fall, but Yeah. The other thing I want to point out there, Jack O'Connor at the bottom there and Bradley Hodges, we don't currently know the status of their injuries when they'll be back. Bradley Hodges, it's very likely he misses the entire season because it was Tommy John surgery for him back in late February, I think. So I'm not sure they'll be able to get those two guys back. But hopefully they can get a Jack O'Connor back. But Nick, who's your X factor in this bullpen?
Actually, I have a question for you, Monty. What do you think of Aiden Teal?
Aiden Teal is going to be. They needed him to be a pitcher last year, but he's not going to really pitch much this year. I don't think they have enough arms that they should not need him to be a pitcher this year. They need him in the outfield.
Okay, because I thought that could be like a little X factor type of thing.
It could, From what I've heard, I don't think he's going to be putting too much into that, and he didn't pitch a whole ton down the stretch at a certain point either. So I think they've been ready to try and get him ready offensively. So,
gotcha. No, it's a very right-handed. It's heavy right-handers, a lot of right-handers. But I think you're going to have a great rotation if these guys can just keep, the runs down. I know they kind of struggled with that a little bit last year. They could be very, very dangerous. So
but all that matters is they get the staff settled by the end of the year, like they did. Thomas Valencias is another Baylor school graduate after Henry Ford and Henry Godbout have come through there. So they've got a little pipeline to the Baylor school in Tennessee. But I think he could ultimately be the best lefty out of the bullpen, although they are really high on Matt Lansendorf for a D3 transfer. And then Blake Barker was pitching in a lot of high leverage situations last year. Didn't necessarily always do what he would have liked to have done. So hopefully we can see some more out of those two lefties. But let's move on to the really fun part, the lineup. Oh, first we got the pitching staff, the roles that we wanted to talk about. Matt Augustine, I think, kind of stays in that relief ace role. But Nick, I'll start with you since we kind of finished with you. What are your thoughts here on the staff overall? I know you kind of just touched on that a little bit, but if you want to just give us another brief tidbit on the roles here.
Love Friday, Saturday. I feel like there's a lot upside on Jay, right? I feel like if there's any struggle at all, he could be bumped down to Sunday's role. So we'll see. But other than that, it looks very, very strong.
Micah, do you feel better about their pitching staff or about the same as when we started this?
I mean, I think it's the same as what we started. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's kind of what we talked about when we talked about Stanford a little bit, right? Like, who's going to progress out of this bullpen? There's belief in a lot of the guys there. Lesendorfer from Misericordia, the D3 transfer, I think someone I'm really excited about personally, kind of seeing where he, his elevation, right? And we've, as UVA fans, right, we've enjoyed the D3 pipeline a little bit with Jacob Ferentz. Hopefully that continues. But I mean, I think from our conversation, I'm still very high on the staff as a whole. But there's a lot of question marks again on who's going to be what role down the stretch. Because again, like Hungate had his role and Tonis had his role, kind of figuring out who those are going to be this year.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it might be hard for us not to overreact early in the season like some of us did last year.
Who would that be?
And it did take them into the month of April, I think, to really settle in with the staff there. So let's take a look at the fun part now, the lineup. Who do you think starting at catcher? Here's the options at catcher. Obviously, they've got some more because James Nunnally, a freshman, can play catcher. Will Broderick, a freshman, can play catcher. But I threw Sean James in there just to kind of get him in there. Trey Wells is a D2 guy, but Jacob Ferentz, obviously the best catcher in the country, according to some. D1 had him as the best catcher.
Hey, buddy.
Yes.
You see your area yet?
Yep. Don't worry about it. Kent Schmidt has transferred to UVA. It's Chris Arroyo should be there over.
I was like, what?
Yeah. Kent Schmidt is obviously at Georgia Tech. I obviously, when I was filling these out, I got excited and did not put Chris Arroyo in the first base slot there. So he would be in first base on top of Antonio Parada. But let's talk a little bit about this. I'm gonna just throw everybody up there. Whoop. Let's talk a little bit about this. I'll start with you, Nick. What are your thoughts here on this this lineup? I mean,
it's a familiar outfield with Aiden and Henry. But man, I see just like a ton of power. Can someone please explain to me why Henry hasn't gotten like some kind of NIL deal yet?
No, we're with you on this.
It's ridiculous, man. Like, how many times do I have to say it? Like, Dodge, Chevy, you could do something so funny here. Like, can someone watching has to have some kind of contact with like the Charlottesville Chevy or the something. I don't know. But no, I see a lot of power throughout this whole lineup, man. And this it's a lot of familiar names. It's going to be some new names, but I can't wait to see this team.
Yeah, you'll notice Harrison Didewick is not in a starting outfield role. I kind of projected him to be the DH with Nunnally taking over in left field, Aiden Teal in center, Henry Ford in right. I think they really want Henry Ford in right, and I think they really want I think Aiden Teal defensively is just a little bit stronger than Harrison Didewick, who is very good. He's got good range. But I had him kind of slotting in at the DH. So if anyone's wondering why I have Didewick not in that starting role.
Corrado will be the DH and they'll keep Didewick in the outfield and let Nunnally develop some and not necessarily be the everyday outfielder?
All the reports I'm indicated is that Nunnally they are super high on Nunnally and believe he is ready to go.
Hey, as someone, Harrison Didewick, if you listen to this, I'm a big fan. But as someone that watched you throw the ball in the outfield a little bit last year, I'm not necessarily opposed to you being a DH. Because we know you can hit, but
Parada will get an opportunity to be in the DH conversation. He'll also get an opportunity to play first base when Arroyo is pitching. I know that they were really high on Parada. He didn't get a ton of time last year, but I know that Oak was high on him in the fall last year. And, you gotta love the infield though, right? I mean, Eric Becker was on a tear last year after when Godbout went down for that little bit of time, Becker just went off in a full-time role. And then Luke Hansen might be your number 9 guy, your 8 or 9 guy, and he is pretty good. Nick, this is a lot of power, right? Micah, talk to me about this team. I mean, the outfield could hit 60 home runs easily.
I mean, I'm just so excited for Luke Hansen because you saw bits and pieces of what he's capable of last year. I think seeing him in the everyday role at third is something I'm very, very excited about because you could tell last year he was just on the cusp of breaking through almost every day. And obviously, Henry Godbout, again, you got to be excited for him. I mean, it's gonna be fun because the place to sit right at the dish this year might be out in right field there or in any of those bleacher seats out in the outfield. Shout out to UVA for having you to be able to sit in the outfield for their games because kids bring your gloves.
Yeah, I mean, look at this lineup. It's perfectly balanced. Who are you pitching to? James Nunnally, I guess, who apparently is next level as a freshman. So who are you pitching to, Nick?
There's no break.
Aiden Teal.
I'm pitching to Henry Ford. That kid can't hit.
Aiden Teal might hit 20 home runs, and he's batting 7th.
Oh my goodness! Are we? I'll make a prediction. This team is going to lead the ACC in home runs.
I don't know.
I'm fairly confident that this team is going to lead the ACC in home runs.
Micah, is that a bold take or
how many did he say?
He's going to lead the ACC.
They're going to lead the ACC.
I don't think that's a bold take.
No, I don't think so either. I think it's a good take.
The dish is a somewhat not like super hitter friendly.
It's not Georgia Tech,
or Wake.
Yeah, the couch is a
but it's also not Sunken Diamond. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Who are you toying with? Carolina?
No, I don't think Carolina's got the power. I think they're going to be a really good offense, but not.
I'm curious if Monty knows who I'm going to say.
My thoughts for some reason is Georgia Tech.
It's not Georgia Tech.
It's
Duke?
Florida State. It's Florida State.
It was Clemson, actually.
Oh my goodness! Yes,
Oh,
no,
Clemson.
Clemson is a good guess.
Dang. How did we miss that?
I'm I'm sitting here like, Monty, come on. Like,
I know
Florida State has the potential, but I'm like, the team I'm thinking of has a much higher potential than the teams.
Right. Because Florida State's got some freshmen and then some other guys that are more contact guys. Yeah. Man, but yeah, this lineup rakes.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the
second
schedule.
year in a row if they did.
I must not have seen the UVA schedule graphic because
I finagled this in there. They did the thing where they basically had it as 4 different tweets or something, and I was like, I don't feel like typing all this out, so I'm gonna have to try and squeeze it in there. Virginia's got a fun schedule to start the year. I believe somebody might be at that second weekend in Round Rock, at least for the Oregon State game, which is the one that really. Nick, what are your thoughts on? Who wants to talk non-conference? Who wants to talk about the conference schedule?
I mean, the non-conference schedule minus Round Rock kind of sucks. I mean, right? Am I wrong?
I mean, so a lot of teams on opening weekend are playing Fordham, for example, not Michigan.
Okay, but I mean,
Rice, in Puerto Rico.
Michigan's middle of the Big Ten. Villanova's a very middle of the pack Big East team. Rice is taking a step forward this year. They're going to be better than they've been, but that's still 4th best team in the American.
Yeah, but I mean, that's one Power 4 team as opposed
to. If Virginia loses a game that weekend, are you going to be looking at them and disappointed in the weekend?
No.
Really? Okay.
It's opening.
I would be upset. If they're not undefeated when they play Oregon State, I will be upset.
It's opening weekend. They're still trying to be figuring out their roles. It's
so
in
is
Puerto
Michigan.
Rico.
So is Villanova. So is Rice.
Right, but I'm not going to overreact like you do.
I mean, you're not wrong. But like the expectation, right, is that should be 4 somewhat easy wins. The non-conference schedule stinks, Monty. Minus the midweeks with VCU and JMU later in the year, and then obviously Round Rock.
It's a much better non-conference than last year. They opened up against Hofstra. They played UMass.
Hofstra and Dartmouth are cross each other out.
Okay, but Hofstra was opening weekend, so compare them to Michigan, Villanova, and Rice. And they had to come back
much different, Monty.
They had to come back in 2 of those games against Hofstra.
That's fair.
They play Maryland.
What saves you is Round Rock's better than what Jacksonville was last year.
Micah's just going to ignore that. He said JMU and VCU. Maryland at Fredericksburg. They play Maryland at a neutral site in a midweek.
Maryland has a baseball team? I'm just kidding.
I mean,
I thought did they make it last year?
Huh? No, but they did the year before.
Oh.
But they've reloaded and they look like they could threaten for the Big Ten, but I don't want to be in a place to defend Maryland.
Dead to us.
Yeah, but they do have VCU twice. VCU is in a transition year with their new head coach, so we're not sure how good they are, but they could be pesky. JMU, they're still pretty decent. But I do think, I know you're saying what you said, but I do think it's a better schedule than last year. Not necessarily, that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't necessarily mean Mike is wrong with what he said, but it was rather aggressive and rude. But Nick, what are your thoughts here on this conference schedule? They start off hosting Boston College and then they go to Cal. It's a pretty favorable start in a way. I mean, going to Cal isn't easy, but they get 2 lower end ACC teams to start play.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you want, and that kind of lineup to get going in ACC play, because it will get harder. They have NC State on the road, Florida State on the road, and Georgia Tech on the road. So those are going to be very difficult. They have a tough April schedule, is what I'm saying. And if we think what Pitt can be, it's going to be a tough home series too, as well. I mean, they have one home series in the month of April that, could be very pesky, and they got to go on the road a lot. So it's good that they get like a favorable non-conference and a good conference schedule to start off in March, but that April is going to be kind of tough for them.
Yeah. Micah, what series are you circling? If it's, obviously you're excited about Round Rock, but what are you circling?
I mean, I'm circling Florida State because selfishly I'm hoping to be there, so that helps too. But
yeah.
And again, that's also a great weekend. I mean, I have Florida State as my second best team in the ACC, and Virginia was
a lot of people do as well.
So, that's probably because they avoid Clemson, who was my preseason number 1. So, from a expectations from my standpoint, that is the best weekend that Virginia has in conference play. And again, going on the road, battle, a nice little test there. I think the Stanford one I'm most excited for, though, because I think the Duke one's going to obviously be a really good weekend. But it's going to be how does Virginia respond? Like you go with Duke, and then you got Stanford the following week. You have
on a Thursday, Saturday series.
Oh, true. And you have that weird Tuesday with a scrappy Liberty team. So that's going to be a real tough 7 days, really. Or 8 days, I guess technically. I think that's probably that Stanford series. Plus, again, it's just a fun. Those are teams that. I've been going to Omaha for the last 4 years. Those are 2 teams I've seen most often, especially from an ACC standpoint. So I think there's just some excitement with that too.
Absolutely. And, let's wrap this up a little bit after we talk about their schedule, get that graphic off the screen for our eyes.
My eyes.
But Nick, is this a team that's going to go to Omaha for the 3rd straight year?
I think so. They were one of my 3 teams from the conference that I have going. Like you guys said, the lineup, no matter who they lose in the MLB draft, they just get better. I think if things go right with the pitching staff, we won't see those struggles that they had earlier in the season last year. This team has Omaha written all over it. I really think they can do it. I think they can host. I think they can host supers. They can be a top 4 team in the country. So that's my expectations. This team can win a national championship this year.
Micah, if they fail to make it to Omaha, is it a failure of a season?
I don't think so. I don't think it's a failure of a season because there is, again, I think the pitching staff's going to be good, but it's not like they're bringing back this, deep rotation that you're really sold, that I'm really sold on. I think if they're not in super regionals, then yes, I think that's where the disappointment for me would come. But, I don't necessarily say it's Omaha or bust for a disappointing season, but that said, the expectation is Omaha. I do think you should assume that this team is capable of that. And I mean, looking at it right now, again, when we did the Florida State preview, that's already gone live, right? There's with Florida State, I feel like, I was a little bit lighter returning, and now it's starting to get a little bit more up in the air. So, Virginia, again, when we talk about some of the previous shows, maybe re-ranking it after doing these deep dives, I think Virginia could end up moving up to my number 2 spot. And again, I think there's at least 2 teams going to Omaha from the ACC. So based on that logic, I think the expectation is this team's obviously capable of winning a national title. And it's been 10 years, Monty, so I'm ready for another one.
Yeah, and did you get to experience much of the first one? I mean, I know,
I watched all the games. Yeah, I wasn't there, obviously. But,
right, no, I know.
I remember it because I also remember 2014 being really pissed off, so that's part of it. Yeah, I remember the Florida game in 2015 that was a back and forth game that kind of got them into the winter bracket game. Or was that the 0-0 game? All I know is it was Florida had to beat them twice. That was that Pete Alonso Florida team that was really, really good. But
John Norwood really. But yeah, Mike. Yeah, I remember where I was for the 2015 national championship. I was watching at a bar. It was electric, a lot of fun. I don't think I necessarily believed that they were going to win that game because that Vanderbilt team was so good. It's funny that when you look back on it, just a quick segue, the 2014 Vanderbilt team was not as talented as the 2015 Vanderbilt team that lost, and the 2015 UVA team was not as talented as the 2014 UVA team that lost. So they flipped the script in consecutive years between those. But we're going to wrap it up here. I'm really excited about it. We are back tomorrow night with Virginia Tech, Micah's favorite team. But until then, it just means less.